Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner on YouTube. I hope you're doing fine. I hope you're being creative, and it's lovely to be back here again. I'm a bit out of sorts for myself today. I have lost my way a little bit over the last couple of days with some things. I thought I'd play with watercolour as watercolour, and of course it just doesn't work out as you want it to. And well, in my case, I'm just never comfortable without black lines. Why is that? Perhaps it's just because that is my style, my voice, and I need to stick with that. Anyway, I did do some extra work on this page away from camera, YouTube and so on. And I don't know if you can see, if I move this around, you might be able to see that there are some metallic highlights and lines that are actually using watercolour and a fine paintbrush. I added the textures and patterns, and then I, in some cases, just ordinary watercolour, and in this case over here, hopefully I can get it to flash. That, yeah, you see the flashing there going on with this one here. I used metallics there to bring out the pattern and texture. Not very neatly, but it's a sketchbook page and it's just trying things out. In others, I've used a combination of metallics and just plain watercolours to see what happens. And it's interesting, it's fun, it's playing with things, and it doesn't have to be anything that is perfect or anything else. So I've got a few of those to do, but every now and again, you just have to go and do something a bit different or change things up, freshen things up. And today's one of those days where I'm not sure it's freshening, but it's going back to something perhaps, or doing something that's perhaps a bit more familiar, or something I'm a bit more comfortable with, or I just have had that little diversion round in a slightly different direction as far as colour and things like that have gone. And Monday's a day where I think I need some comfort art, because I've been stretching myself outside my comfort box a bit too much, and I'm beginning to get a bit, I know, it happens to us all. So before I start having a look at this Tangle pattern, Nova by Beth Gaughan, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me. To all my new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing. For all the lovely comments, thank you. And for all the thumbs up for my videos, thank you as well. So Nova is a pattern that's new to me, and it seems to be fairly new on tanglepatterns.com. I think it was put there a week ago, weekish, sometime in the last week or so. And it's not a pattern that I would ordinarily choose. I don't know why, but it isn't. But I thought perhaps that's enough of a challenge for me to have a look at it. And it is a grid-based pattern, so I am going to use this in a square, because this is the original. And the basic form of it is you go from a corner towards the middle, but not quite the middle. You need a little gap at the top. So like that. But that's not Nova. The way that Beth has designed her Tangle pattern Nova is you have this. Then on one side you aura that line, and on the other you fill it with lines. Oh, and the other thing I forgot, there's this goes in at the bottom, so a little arch there, and this central bit here is filled with black. Now I may not fill all of mine with black as I work through this, and this is my second go at doing this, because the sun decided to come out and I was partway through filming and I realised that most of it had been washed out thanks to the sun, because I just got so engrossed in what I was doing I forgot to check what it was looking like on the camera. So we go again, but that's fine. So I'm going to have a look here, and I'm going to draw a grid that will be 3 by 3. 4 by 4 is nice, but 3 by 3, or 3 by 2 rather, lets you see, or lets me see better, how these go together and the kinds of meta shapes that we get, meta patterns. So I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to start with filling these with these 2 lines each square. I'm going to pop these 2 lines in. Already see we're getting sort of shield shapes appearing where the squares meet each other, and I quite like that. But we've got this line here where there's a distinct gap or distinct border or edge between them, so we don't have any shapes really appearing here. So let me go and pop these lines in this side, and we'll do the same the next row down, like so. Oh, must remember to do this. I keep forgetting to do that. And pop the lines in the one space we haven't done anything to yet, apart from the middle space. Let's look. I'm not being terribly neat because this is sketchbook work, but perhaps I ought to practice my neatness, control, because I'm going to need that for some work I need to do today. There is something nice and soothing about such repetitive things. So I'm going to leave these central bits blank white for now. If I turn this one upside down, I'll show you what I mean. Let me just get a box that is roughly the same size. So instead of starting in the bottom corner and drawing upwards, let's start at the top corner and drawing down towards the middle in each case. That's right. Just stop and think then. It happens. Like so. Then if I pop these lines in, these curved lines here that create half a leaf. Oh gosh, they look almost like columns. They've actually, that's interesting. I like that. And then what we've got here, it looks like arches underneath. So with this, what I'm going to do, instead of doing the lines, like lines on the same side, so lines here, lines on the right side, lines on the right side, or the left side of each one, left side of each square, what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate or mirror these shapes. So here I've got that aura line on this side. If I mirror it, I'm going to get that aura line on this side. Then here I'm going to get lines, but if I mirror that, I'm going to get them opposite like this. And then I can just aura this one. So it looks like I've got windows and doors, doesn't it? You know, shuttered window and an open arched window. I could repeat this in the same way so that I have the lines underneath here, or I could alternate them so that I've got that space filled with lines below a space that has that aurid shape. So this would be the aurid shape. This would be lines. So it's the same as this, upside down, but now I've mirrored where the lines are. Here there's a kind of disconnect. It feels a bit clunky to me, where the lines and the aurid space meet. But down here we've emphasized these meta shapes, these arches or shield shapes that are between. If I turn it upside down, you'll see they now look like shield shapes again. So that's an interesting kind of point of view, kind of thing for me. So we've mirrored. What about if we rotate? So this will be interesting. Let's start with this shape, where I'm just going to draw these two lines in and that bottom one. So if you look at these are sort of like at 12 o'clock in this box. We'll go clockwise, so we go from 12 to 3 o'clock. So I want to draw the lines going this way, and I will pop that in. Then from 3 o'clock we go to 6 o'clock, so we want the lines getting closer together at the bottom. And then this one, we want that, this kind of this side of the square on this side. Oh, pop that one in as well, like that. Now I actually like that just as it is, but let's keep this fragment in here. So I am going to do this shape here, and then if I go to the center, I can see the next place that we've got this shape is here. And then we come round, it's this side. And then we go up to here and we fill this one in. I could have done this with the aura lines, it would work out exactly the same kind of pattern. If you use these to fill a whole grid in, you will find there's a combination of them, how they spiral around. But so that's quite fun, I like that. Okay, what about other things? Borders. Oh no, hang on, let me have a look here. Let me have a look at doing a slightly bigger grid here. So this one will be 3 by 3, hopefully. I could have done 4 by 4, but 3 by 3 will be fine. So in all of these, except for the bottom one, these are all going in the same direction. So in this one, where we've got this one, we have got this narrow line at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror them vertically. So here, the next line in this one, we'd have the small gap here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have this as if it's mirrored top to bottom here. Like so. And then this next one, we want this narrower space here at the top. And we can just use those lines to draw from, so we get a nice smooth line. Let's go in and add these shapes between the line, the wider end of that inner shape, middle space, like that. And we get these kinds of leaf shapes. And I think what I will do, just to help with this, is just pop this in, another one in, so we've got a couple of repeats here. So let me just pop this in, like so. And then there are options. But what I'm going to do is, because we're mirroring top to bottom, I'm putting the lines on this side. Ultimately, it really doesn't matter which side you put them on, as long as you're consistent in the whole pattern. So it will be on this side all the way down this particular row, because we're mirroring everything top to bottom. If that makes any sense. Hope it does. So in this next shape, we're going to have the aura, and then on the other side is where we have the lines. And what I'm doing here, or trying to do here, is connect the ends of that aura to the first line that I'm drawing in, so that it's this sort of like they join up and it feels more harmonious, connected. So hopefully you can see I'm going to draw the first line there, so it connects to this inner aura, like so. It just feels smoother. So I'll pop these in, and because we're doing the same in this section, just draw it in one smooth line rather than stopping and starting if you can. Again, I'm going to take that as my starting point for all of these lines and fill it in. Same here. Don't know why, it just feels a bit more natural. And then these ones will just have the aura in them. So that creates something a bit different. I think how you shade or colour things in makes a difference. These areas in the middle could be black, but we could leave them as they are and add shadow, shading, colour or anything else. Okie doke, so what about borders, ribbons? So let's have a look. You could just take one row here, this row, and that would work as a border. Or let's have a look if we alternate these. So wide gap, narrow gap, wide gap, narrow gap, narrow gap at the top, wide at the bottom, wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. And then I'm going to put the aura in on this one. Let me pop these in while I'll then explain my thinking about where I put the lines and the auras on the alternate ones, the ones that are upside down, as it were, the starting ones. So this we've rotated really. We've taken this and we've flipped it over. So we could put the aura line and the straight lines there, but I think I'm going to put these lines in and join them up across the border, the boundary, because I think this shape that they make here is really rather nice, and I'm going to pop this in like that. I'm just going to add an edge to it, but I quite like that shape, and I've forgotten to pop these bits in here. I do have trouble remembering to do that, but there we are. So that's one way. Instead of that, we could have just split this up again. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing where I flip these. This does take a bit of thinking. I've done exactly the same shape, so let's carry on. Now I've started, I may as well finish. So pop those in, and we can then do those sides, and then I'll do a couple of these with the lines filling them. Getting confused. It's funny, isn't it? You sort of like, you know you've got to do these things, but you're thinking, am I doing this right? It doesn't look the same. But it is. So there's a variation. And this area inside to be black. I might come back and add black to them just to help to bring that out. The variation I wanted to do, I'll just do 4 repeats, I think would be enough. Do that, miss one, do that, miss one, and then we do these upside down. Yeah, like so. And then if I start with lines here, I'm always going to have lines on the left side of each square. So lines, miss that gap, lines, miss that gap, lines, miss that gap, lines. Yeah, that's right. There we go. Let's pop that shape in as well, because I forgot to do that. Too easy to get carried away, and then we can pop that shape in just like that. And I'm going to try to attach that line to the first line in that shape, so we get that going on. I'm not sure, different feeling to each. This one just has that feeling of, I don't know which one feels nicer. They all feel quite disjointed to me. This one's got the feeling of repetition in a nice way. That one feels more comfortable than the others. And, you know, we could have done this kind of thing where we mirror them, so we get the lines and sort of like the open spaces in that kind of way. All right, let's have a look at one more of these. So let's draw some squares in. They're going to be wonky. So for this, I'm going to draw the shapes in like this, but I'm going to mirror them from left to right. And joining these lines on, so I'm essentially carrying on those lines in this up and down fashion. I'll put those middle bits in where they meet, like so. And then I'm going to do mirrored versions where I'm going to do every other of these gaps. So aura, don't aura, aura, don't aura. And then we can just pop in perhaps some lines here. Not there. So we can miss one and do that there. Of course, we could do that with all the auras on the top and all the lines on the bottom, or we could do half lines, the other half aura'd. You know, there's possibilities. But the other thing I want to mention is there's possibilities for inside these shapes. So if I draw this, and I'm drawing it on a slightly larger scale here, then, and I'm going to draw that in. I'll put the aura on one side and then the lines on the other. So instead of lines, we could cross-hatch to give a gridded pattern. But we can also draw a smaller shape inside this, like so. So we could get something in there that's quite different, or fit other patterns within if we aura that shape. The other thing is that where we've got these shapes in the ribbon, it could be quite fun to add auras to them and either fill them in like that's all black in the centre, or I quite like this one where you do sort of like black, white across the area. I find that quite intriguing, as well as we could just fill it all in black. So let me have a look at this one again. So we'll pop that in, and then here we could pop in a series of orbs, fill that, perk them, or I haven't put them in as perks, I've just put circular shapes in, and then aura both sides and the top to create a variation there. That actually would work quite nicely, and then you've got these spaces you can do something with when you join them together, but I quite like something like this, to be honest. And let's have a quick look and see if there's another variation I can come up with. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in. I shall aura on both sides. Because again, I think I would quite like to use this as the fragment where I can have auras on both sides like that. Because I think that gives lots of opportunities for what you can do within these spaces. But this would be quite nice to do other things with. From the point that we could fill this section with lines, and even with lines that perhaps have a gap in the middle, if we fill alternate lines in and have that bit of sparkle there, that little highlight in the middle. Yeah, I can now see what I'm doing. My nose was getting too close to the paper, so my glasses weren't letting me see clearly. Keep my head up a bit. So we could have something like that, which is quite fun. But of course, that then also means that what we do in that section, if we aura outwards, leave that one empty, and we can add lines and that little bit of sparkle in the middle. In those spaces in between, and that would look quite nice going across the central line, and you could put the sparkle to one side of that so the line disappears effectively. What about other shapes? Would this work in other shapes? So I'm absolutely sure it will. Let's go for a circle. So we've got that. We need that kind of shape going here, which is possible. If I aura that side, and I'll do the original. So we put lines on the other side. Then essentially we've got the same kind of pattern but in a different shape. Try a triangle. We've got this, which is perfect for the top part of the shape, haven't we? So we've got that here, so let's aura one side and put the lines in the other, so that would work. Teardrop shape is essentially a triangle that has got a big curved bottom, so that would work as well. Just going to do auras on each of the three sides and add lines there. It's another variation. What other shapes? It would work in other shapes as well, but these are the most common ones we come across, I think. Or leaf shapes are another one. This one would be interesting because you want to flare this out in that kind of direction and pop that shape there. So it would work inside those kinds of shapes. But it's all good fun. Well, I think it is. What about adding shadow? Oh, you know how much I love adding shadow. This central bit needs something doing to it, whether it's adding black or keeping it clean and bright, which I think I'm going to do here. This one I'm going to add shadow where there are these lines. I'm going to keep the middle bit clear, although I've just gone and popped graphite in the centre of that one. But that's what erasers are for. Already I think I'm beginning to be able to see. Oh, where's my... There we go. So I just need to erase that little bit in the centre before I do anything else. And already with just that little bit of graphite, you can see that these areas are already feeling like they belong underneath, or they're lower. And as the graphite gets spread out and the highlights left towards the edge, you've got a feeling that this is doming upwards as well, as if it's curving down and under. Just do these others. Just get those all nicely smoothed out and blended in. So already that's added a bit of dimension to it. But the other side, I think I'll do it inside this line. Let's have a look and see how that will actually work. I was kind of thinking about doing this underneath this inner section here. But it's really awkward to perhaps get into that space and just add a tiny bit of graphite, and then using a big clunky paper stump that I've managed to dig out here. I'm sure I've got loads of others elsewhere, but it was to hand, so. The pencil I'm using is a 6B, and it's not a matte graphite pencil. It's just an ordinary graphite. But 6Bs are really soft and they blend out really smoothly. So that actually has helped greatly. The other thing I want to do is, and I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop shadow underneath these leaf shapes, just to lift them up above this central area. I don't want to spread this too far down, but I want to spread it down just far enough that we get that feeling that these leaves may be a bit higher again. So essentially we've got 3 layers in this pattern. We've got these inner bits which are low down, these bits which are next up, and then we've got the leaves sticking up a little bit. I think possibly think I've got enough graphite on my paper stump tortillon just to put a bit of shadow above these leafy shapes. I can always pick up a bit more graphite as I go along from areas I've blended in and just add that. And that's better. That little hint of a shadow there just helps to push these yes, they're like letter I's, aren't they, backwards a bit. So that's quite nice. That works. What about this one? I think with this one it's going to be always with these. Putting them there. But I actually think I'm going to put a bit more at the point as well, so that there'll be more graphite in these areas. Trying to keep it darkest right next to the line and towards the pointy bit at the bottom of this shape. Perhaps leaving a bit of highlight at the top and the right of this area that's got lines in it. So that works, that helps there. And then I'm going to pop some shadow underneath these, underneath this line and this line. And just send this little area backwards. Because that's essentially what you're doing with shadow, is you're sending areas backwards, and with highlights you're bringing them forward. Kind of, that's an oversimplification, but it helps. So we've got that. Now here, I could put shadow there, or I can try and do what I said I was going to try in the other one, is pop some graphite just on to the left of these curved lines here. Not the outermost line, but the next one in. And let's see what happens, because that should, if I'm careful, I should be able to just shadow in this section and keep the shadow darkest close to that line. I know there's supposed to be no erasers in Zentangle, but I'm not teaching Zentangle, I'm teaching patterns. I say teaching because I'm not a Zentangle teacher. But I'm just trying to use this as a way of helping you perhaps get to grips with shadow and highlight and how they can bring, even in black and white, images to life. So that has certainly created some dimension, I think. Others, this one is fun here. It's definitely going to be shadows here. I'm going to pop some there, even though I didn't put lines in on that one. So that helps to lift this eye shape that's like the lazy eye that's lying down, sleeping eye, up. This one is a bit different. We've got these borders here. So I could put some shadow inside the border and underneath, or I could play with this. Let's see what happens when I do this. Put some shadow there and pull it down towards the middle, leaving a bit of a highlight. So that works quite nicely, and perhaps then I can pop some shadow here and here, and that would work quite nicely, I think. Build that over into the narrow border, but that is what usable erasers are for. We can just pick some up. That's interesting because that's created a feeling that these are really seriously bent up. Perhaps we could do with just a little bit of shadow at the end of these. That could work. I think so. So that's interesting how that works. You get the idea, I hope, I think. And it's just playing around with them and trying different things out and seeing what happens. And just being consistent in how you apply the shadow and how you add things in. And yeah, I've got space there to try other things out if they come to me. So this will end up in my sketchbook. Colours, something else to add, to think about. These are a guide now to where I could put the darkest colour and fade it out. So if I was using, say, indigo blue here, I'd have the darkest indigo where the graphite is dark and blend it out till practically nothing at the top there. And even though I've got lines on one side, I can do the same on the other with the darkest indigo on the outside and the lightest in the centre to enhance that feeling that we've got like bubbles pointing up, you know, a bit like weird shaped bubble wrap. Yeah, definitely I need to lie down in a darkened room or something, I think. But I hope that helps. I hope you found it interesting and something a bit different from the last couple of weeks where we've been looking at a lot of sketchbook work. This is still sketchbook work, but it's a more structured way and a way of exploring things and just trying different things out. I haven't exhausted the possibilities here. Instead of using lines in this section, we could use other patterns. So for example, as I put my glasses back on, I always am going to finish and I always suddenly something comes to my head and I've got to go with it, haven't I? So if I pop an example up here, there, and let's do the basic shape like this, and I'll aura on one side, but this side, instead of these straight lines, I could fill it with lots of tiny circles. Instead of oh, that's a really, so here I've really curved that sharply at the top to create definite shapes like this. Instead of having horizontal lines, we could use vertical lines, or we could use cross hatching. I'm doing it horizontal and vertical. You could do them diagonally, or we could, I'm going to just pop these here, and because I do like double borders like this, and we could fill one side with spirals. I've got fairly large spirals here, but you could go as tiny as you like. So they don't have to be filled with these lines. There are other things you can do. Put that on one side. What was the one I was thinking of? Oh yeah. So I'm putting a little, almost like a seed in the middle with that little highlight in it, little circle with a highlight, and then drawing 3 auras around it. Not 3, 2. So that instead of lines. And of course you could just fill that area in black if you wanted to keep the central bit light. If you wanted this black, then you're going to have to edge it like this, so that you have something, you know, you've got that white edge between the pattern and the black. So here, instead of straight lines, I've curved the edges, they look like little arches, and you've got black there. So the possibility of doing this and putting them into these patterns is endless. These aren't the only filling patterns you can use. You know, you can use little lines. Show you what I mean. So you could use little lines like this. Instead, it's just creating a pattern or a texture to separate, to make that section look different to the rest. You could use stippling, little dots, anything you like. I mean, my favourite, one of my favourite filling patterns is deviantArt. So I could do that. I will put an aura in before I start doing it, because I know that it can get quite intense, and it's quite nice to have that little section that separates it from the rest of the space. And the bigger you draw the fragments, the cell, these squares, the more space you've got to play with. Now I do like that, but then that's because I like deviantArt. So there are options, there are lots of things, and all I can do is to encourage you to play, to have a go and see what happens. The worst thing that happens is that you don't like what you've done and you've wasted, well, I say wasted, it's not wasted if you've enjoyed what you're doing, but you've just used a bit of pen, ink and a bit of paper, and you've discovered some things that you like and maybe some things you don't, that you think, oh, I won't do that in the future, but I do like that and I want to see how that works. And I find that with each one I do, as you've just noticed, as I talk about things, another idea will come to the forefront. And it's just trying them out. It's a sketchbook. This is a piece of paper that's going to end up in my sketchbook. But it's a sketchbook, and it really isn't important whether it's perfect or not, if everything on it is lovely or not. It's about practicing your pen skills, your drawing skills. It's about working with creativity, with your imagination. It's flexing those muscles and getting them beginning to work. And it's getting ideas down without any judgment of yourself or other people, you know, fearing other people judging you. This sketchbook is for you. It's yours. It becomes a resource for you. Write notes if you need to. Say, oh, what was I thinking here? I often do that. Go, Angela, what were you thinking? Or leave them, because you never know. Later on, in a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years, you have a look through and you think, I really like that one now. That would be perfect for what I'd like to do. You just never know. Our tastes change, the way we work changes. And as you grow and you develop as an artist, whether you want to develop your skills for, I don't know, profit in some way, or whether you just want to enjoy the process of drawing, you will develop these skills. You will. And that's the biggest encouragement I can give to you. So enjoy what you do, have fun with Nova, and fingers crossed, all being well, I'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and find time to be creative. Bye-bye for now.